Encrypted Wilderness Research. I'm Daniel Becker, here with my research partner, William Lunsford, and also published author. We are here to discuss his most recent book, Searching for the Unfindable, My Quest for the Arkansas Bigfoot. So, William, tell us how this book came into being.
I'll tell you, this book was truly unintentional. The contents of this book actually began when I was probably 7 or 8 years old, going with my dad down the Sulphur River, living in the woods down there on a road called South State Line, and coming into distant contact with something that was rumored to be there, but that I never got to see until 1977. So again, I was down there with my first encounter, my second encounter in 1985. I began to tell people what I had come across there, and of course, you automatically met with ridicule. But after a while there, I began to talk to other people, and I would tell people what had happened to me, and then in turn, sometimes they would give me an encounter they'd had of their own. And so with that being said right there, they're like, man, you need to write about that. And of course, for something that short, 2 encounters, is not a whole lot to write a book about, but I had become a researcher. After my 1985 encounter, it was something like an itch I couldn't scratch. And I started putting it on paper, number one, to tell people about, but two, but also to make me feel better also. It was like a labor of love that actually lifted the weight of the world off your shoulders. I wanted to tell, but I didn't. I told the first time whenever I had my encounter, and then folks made fun of me. So again, I decided right then I wasn't going to tell anybody, but I had to do something. As I began to have more and more encounters, the older I got, talking to more and more people people said, William, you've got to write a book. And so I did. I thought, well, I'll just go ahead and do that and see how it goes across. And so far, my input that I've gotten from other people is very positive. For that, I'm thankful. Also, it's encouraged me. It's given me more confidence as far as in my speaking to others about this phenomenon that we know is Bigfoot. And with that right there, like I said, it's made it to where it's just easy for me now to talk about like something or other, like I'm talking about the day's weather, because it's such an interesting subject. And I feel comfortable doing it, but then again, I want to share this truth. The truth that Bigfoot is real is there. There's no denying it. Some people may want to deny it, but a lot of times that's just because they maybe want to be argumentative, or they haven't experienced it, or they don't want to experience it. Once they experience Bigfoot, it turns over their apple cart. Then they're not comfortable in the woods. They're not comfortable in the country. They're not comfortable outside at night. They're not comfortable outside in the daytime. And so that's kind of how it got to be there. The more encounters that I had, the more stories I was able to write about. And again, in talking with other people and with their encouragement, I actually decided to go ahead. Yeah, I'll go ahead and give this a try. So I have, and very, very thankful that I have.
So I'm not just saying this because you're my research partner, but this is one of the best books regarding the topic that I have ever read. And it's got wit, it's got history, it's got humor, and it's got those southern phrases that I like so much that I think are just fantastic. And another thing I like about it is that it actually has color photographs. And we'll get a shot of that. But yeah, it's got a lot of photos in there too. So tell us about how the book starts out. Where's your starting point?
Okay, my starting point is doing just a little bit of pondering truly about why I'm actually writing this book, how it came to be, what were some of the different factors that could influence it, the same ones that actually influence other people. And so whenever I got that out there, then I began with my home life there. When I was a young man, I lived out on a farm about 2 miles north of what's called the Sulphur River. There's a creature down here that's called the fountain monster. It's been labeled the fountain monster, but that being lives there in the woods all around Falk, all the way in the woods towards Texarkana, almost into the city limits there, all the way out through Highway 82 east, going towards Magnolia, across the Red River, and all around here. And so that was one of those things right there that having, as I began to be a UPS man, having encounters with people with that broad reaching area right there, I'm like, oh my gosh, man, this is something I've got to tell. So again, with that right there, as I got on this book right here, the area called South State Line, if you go down there, it's a place that if you go into the woods at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's like you're in the woods at 8 o'clock at night. The shadows are so thick. the places that they can have where they can stand right beside a tree or stand right there, just stand still and hide, are just so numerous that it truly defies description unless you have actually been somewhere like that. Daniel jokingly calls it America's Amazon, but that's actually a very, very good description. There's actually places down there that Indians have not been. There's places down there people have not been. And this, although this is one of the shortest rivers in Texas, it has the biggest watershed. And so with that right there, there's alligators, there's beavers, there's panthers, there's bobcats, there's bears, there's wolves, actually the red wolf, not the timber wolf, but the red wolf, coyotes, and all these things. And so it just makes the setting for this just the perfect place to be. So when I started writing, like I said, it was kind of a labor of love, but it's something that I wanted to get out there and try to get out there in a way which folks will realize, hey, this guy's not lying to. He's telling us the truth, and for them to be able to identify with other people, and then if they have their encounters, or if they can run across somebody who's just encountered, be able to be more empathetic instead of just automatically denying that, oh no, that's a lie. And I went through a lot of that as well. I don't lie, especially about that subject right there. It's changed my life too much, and so. Having said that, like I said, I put it down on pen and ink, and this book is 459 pages, or 449, I'm sorry, 449 pages with color pictures. Like I said, I've got many of the anecdotes. I included some there from people who surprised me with what they replied as I asked them, had they ever seen Bigfoot or anything else like that had happened. And when they told me, it just really, when I say it blew me away, it did. It just, my mind all of a sudden began to spiral. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's more than this. So that's kind of where it's at right there. And then I'm actually in the process right now of getting book 2 started, and it's going to be a continuation of this right here, of this 47 years of research. I didn't break the book up for one reason. I didn't want to mess it up. But now I'm starting phase 2 of a period of about 6 years ago, when we began to set out more game cameras. We began to get more time into the woods, found an area that's just outstanding. And one in March in 2018, of the 31 days of March, we got like 27 pictures. So with that right there, it's something that you want to share, you want to tell people about. It's not something I want to brag about. Like I said, they have more to do with it than I do. But it's, again, something that I'm very proud to share with people, and to see the interest, and for them to say, man, I appreciate you telling me about that right there, because I've always wondered. The Patterson-Gimlin film that you see there from California, 1967, is probably in a tie with what's called the Zapruder film of John F. Kennedy's assassination as the most viewed piece of film in all the world. So it's not just me that has interest, come to find out. It's other people also.
So there's so many things that I could pull out of this book and ask you about. It's filled with field experience and situations that you found yourself in throughout the years with research. And one particular part I had to laugh because it's the start of chapter 11, and I'm gonna just read this first sentence. What does Bigfoot eat? The answer reads like a joke. Anything it wants. Now, when I read that the first time, it reminded me of your first encounter with Sasquatch, and it's eating the leaves off the tree.
Right.
Tell us about that moment right there.
Right there, whenever I saw the very first time I saw this thing in 1977, it was in the spring. I don't know exactly what day, because I never thought I'd see one again. At that time, I was 17 years old. We used to play college football. Chronicling an event like that was probably the last. Having the encounter was probably the last thing on my mind. Chronicling it was probably the second last thing on my mind. So as I'm down there, I'm fishing a series of gravel pits, and then they've been reclaimed by nature. They've dug out the water. Some people call them borrow pits. You borrow the gravel from the earth, and then if they leave it open, then they begin to fill. They hit the water table, and then it begins to be stocked with fish and everything. And so it's just a natural feeding area for any of the creatures that we have down there. So as I'm down there one day, I began to smell something, and I'd been there before, had something scream at me. And it truly scared me to death. The scream was, it was one of those kind. It wasn't like people say, "Oh, that's a panther," like a woman screaming. No, this was like something screaming that wanted to just rip your head off. And it was so much volume. Again, your clothes just vibrate like you hear some of those bass speakers when you pull up the stop signs in town and stuff like that. It was just that loud. And because you knew that it was no creature that you understood to be a resident around there, it made it that much more like sinister, I guess you could say sinister. And so I took off running. Whenever I got across this creek that I had to wade, got back to my vehicle, and it was not there. So I thought, oh man, you've dodged your bullet here. And went to the store, bought me a Bowie knife, and then being 17 years old, and I thought, yeah, you've got this situation under control now. No, I didn't have it under control. And the series of events from the next week and a half or so actually proved that to me. I got to see what it was that was making all that noise, that was causing the stink. And it was not anything I was prepared for. Not only that, it was not anything I believed in until maybe 1 second before I actually saw this thing as he squatted over there behind a tree and had a limb in front of his face. So he began to stand up, and the limb got to where it's supposed to go. He continued to stand up. And so when I looked, I'm like, oh my gosh, what is that? And there wasn't a pigeonhole I could put it. There wasn't anything I could classify it with. I said I did not believe in the fat monster, but I knew what I was seeing was not a bear. I thought about that. It was not a sloth, because Arkansas doesn't have sloths. It wasn't any of my buddies that were down there to mess with me in the woods. This was something here I truly was not prepared for. It walks out into the middle of the road there and stands there and postures to me, kind of teeters back and forth like that right there. Eyeballs never leave me, never leave me. And again, I told somebody one time, it's like he's reading my mail. He's just totally. So he walks back there in a little bit to go back to the very same tree. He grabs the same limb with the very same left hand, puts it in his mouth, pulls off all the leaf, chews for a minute, and then comes to stand in the middle of the road. Whenever he does that right there, I'm realizing, well, not realizing actually, but that I'd already been realizing this is probably how I'm going to die. But I began actually coming into grips and into meeting with my own mortality, like this is how it's going to happen. It really upset me. I was crying. I was hyperventilating. I wanted to run and I couldn't. You just don't have control of all your faculties at that time. So as he begins to sit there and just rock back and forth again, I'm like, well, this is it, and began to pray, Lord, take care of my mom, let him find my body. And so as he began to step, I thought he was going to step towards me. He took that step and he just spun on that left foot, took 2 steps, and then he was into the woods on the 3rd step. You couldn't hear him, you couldn't see him, but you could still smell him. But you were still on such high alert. Finally, whenever I got to the point that I had some control over my faculties, because I wanted to run, I couldn't. My feet would not let me run. And I don't know if they have a thing that can kind of make you catatonic, where you just kind of stand there and you can't escape mentally for a while. Whether it was that or not, I don't know. But began to run and ran back to my vehicle, threw my stuff over the fence, dove through the fence, got in my vehicle, realized I'd left my stuff outside, drive up there, get it, and put it there, and go back home. And that was the last time I was there by myself until about probably 4 years ago. I went down there one time just to kind of confront my fears, and then I went down with some more friends that had come down from a different Bigfoot group, and coincidentally, we saw 4 tracks coming up out of the creek right there, and then he just jumped up on a bank, and where he went after that, I don't know. As long as it was anywhere besides where I was happy with that.
So this book serves as a really good guidebook for those who are researchers in the field at all experience levels, be it beginner, or or self-labeled expert. I know we got a lot of those in the Bigfoot community. Is there any particular area of this book that's I mean, it's all special, but is there any particular area of this book that stands out as a special moment to you?
Oh, actually, a couple of years ago, I did a show there with the Travel Channel there, and as they were asking me about it, and and trying to think, what kind of ending do we need? Do we need to specialize the ending? Not that that was necessarily their thought, but just I told them, I said, no. When you're looking at Bigfoot, that's special enough right there. You're looking at something that's not supposed to exist, but it does exist. It's 100% real. I've seen many since then. I've got pictures of many. And so with that thought on there like that, it was just one of those things that every time that you have an encounter, whether it's a hearing one of the things that they do, their scream, whether it's a sighting, whether or not you're walking up on tree knocks, or else you find footprints that are the most I've seen is 22 inches long by about 11 and a half inches wide. When you're looking at something and you're coming upon something like that, and you realize, man, I'm in my element, and that's good, but then I'm also dealing with something other that's way outclasses me, and that's when you come to deal with it. You're like, yeah, I want to see another, but how will this end? And so a lot of times I go through with a healthy respect. I'm not necessarily afraid, but I go out with a healthy respect for what this creature is, for what this creature can do, how very intelligent it is, and how with intelligent design it tends to mark some of its territories. How it begins to leave some of these tree structures, the way that it will sit there in times whenever if you have they actually live in groups. There's more than one. And if they get one of their group that's separated, they'll actually try to intimidate you into concentrating on something else. And then while that group, a member of their group, goes back and gets with the group, then they take off. Very, very, it's funny. It's just comical. Not even just funny. It's just comical because the whole time they've done me that way several times, and I fall for it every single time. So again, that's one of those things that is really because it emphasizes to you that what you're dealing with has got a level of intelligence in his environment that is equal to or better than the level of intelligence that what I have in my environment. And I don't say I'm a smart guy, but then I've been around for 64 years, and thanks to the good Lord, He's helped me, survive this far, and I hope many more. But when you realize that He's just as good in His element as what you are in yours, it kind of brings you back down. You're not the top of the food chain.
So, in closing, tell everyone how they can get this great book.
Okay, this book was available on Amazon. You can buy it on Amazon in the hard copy. You can find it in Lulu Books, and also in Kindle Books and in the paperback. And again, it's a long read. But like I said, if there wasn't any place that I could have stopped before these 449 pages were through. Like I said, it's got the color pictures in there because it tends to bring out the detail in some of these things, whereas the black and white just doesn't do. It wouldn't have been right. I wouldn't have felt right had I not done it that way. Try to do it the best I can. And so I'm glad to bring it to everybody. Like I said, it is for everybody. It's not just for different level of research. I've been doing this a long time, and I've been out in the woods a long time. I've hunted, I've bass fished. When I had my job, I made sure that I was paralleling this very same territory actually, so that I could actually have sightings during the daytime sometime, maybe by accident, at nighttime sometime by accident. And sure enough, in driving, at first I thought it was 1.5 million miles, but I had forgotten the miles that I had done on my personal pickup. It's over 2 million miles, and out of that I only saw 2 from a UPS truck. And so that kind of tells you just how rare it is and how special it is, but it's really something other that I think that hopefully we're on the way to maybe getting this thing classified as being a real being, and then we can get it and not keep it necessarily in woods or any kind of zoos, but have some in a structure that we can study so that we can learn more about them, and then bring the feelings that I have for it. Because when I watch them, they're almost familial. They do things I saw 2 big 7-foot brothers one day walking down the edge of the woods. They were actually shoving each other like 2 brothers would that you would expect, that had been together for all those years right there. I've seen mothers and babies, and the nurturing that they have with those right there. And again, I've actually been right there in their line of sight, and they've treated me just as respectfully. It's just what they have, those young ones and those infants. So again, what I'm telling you folks is real. I hope to have more for you. I've got this next book. I've got quite a few more encounters to write about. I've got more pictures than what I've ever had before. So trying to go bring those to everybody as well. So hopefully with everything works out that way. Hopefully you'll see another book here in about 6 months. And hopefully that deepens everybody else's faith and belief in the fact that this character, this creature, character, whatever you want, being, whatever you want to call it, is out there. And I'm glad to do that for everybody.
The title of the book is Searching for the Unfindable, My Quest for the Arkansas Bigfoot. Author William Lunsford, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate it. Thank you, folks, for listening.
Thank you.